Thank you very much. We are going to start with the next panel. We are going to try to make it a little bit different from the previous panel because we do not have a lot to add, but we are going to do what it's possible to do. I'm going to start with this reflection, and then I'm going to ask uh, Ricardo to continue. I want to make a reflection first. I think we are in a situation like 15 years ago when we had this first project of solar energy. And I was told, why solar energy is so expensive? It's useless. And then we just continue, and then we have the Asian countries coming in with the prices going down. I think we are in the same situation with green hydrogen. It's going to happen the same. We have this vector that is really important, but it needs a lot of help. And that is what we are going to discuss today. And so now let's hear about their experiences. Hi, good afternoon. I am Ricardo Mirchel. I come from Estela del Latin American system that is related to energy. We are dedicated to integration about the different regions, and we consider that energy is a fundamental factor for integration. And in that sense, green hydrogen. And this is a vector of integration. Latin America has a lot of possibilities for green hydrogen production, but as Christian said, we had to work out some gaps, and this is the opportunity of integration. In the integration of countries working together and jointly generate value chains, generating technology and cooperation, there is the future of green hydrogen in Latin America and the energy security of the region. We are really happy about the advancements of Chile in that sense because that is going to support the energy security here in Chile. And with that sense, we are trying to generate ideas, project programs that can be pushed forward and to be consolidated as public policies that are regional. I think that the regional public policy, it is a good baseline about some strategic topics in the region, like mining. It's going to be benefits of the green hydrogen that it can give us a very big voice, and we are working towards that. Now, we have a very important spokesperson here, Ricardo Bonini. What do you think? Gaps and opportunities that you see for Latin America? It's an honor to be with you here today. I think that we can just, we have discussed this many times. The Paris Agreement scenario discussion, something it's not new. But I would like to start with some words that are related to, and I have some figures to share with you. And I think it is interesting to bring those numbers that have changed a lot in a year. And we all know of some of those drivers that are important, but just to mention some, we are in the security mode at this point. Everything is discussed in relation not only to that security, and we also talk about military security. It's just to have the message that priorities are changing. And we always have opportunities and challenges. And it's always important to have into account that in the long term, and I am talking about 2050 or 2060, there is this process that it's trend of decarbonization of the energy, market, and we have to do it in a competitive way. It's this principle that states that what it is necessary for the economies is more competitiveness. And this is present in the last few years. And markets like the European Commission that announced that the competition of the industry, those are specific goals that are necessary for that region. And of course, climate change this year we live different situations in the region and beyond the region, but we understand that this is a drive that it continues to be part of the global strategy of decarbonization. And we are aiming to face that climate change. And this just to bring the message that basically there is this great opportunity for hydrogen. The region specifically, understanding that competitiveness can be really interesting because of not only the production potential, but what it is green hydrogen, but we understand there is a lot to be done yet for the drives can be aligned. In this moment also I would like to mention this study that is almost it's going to be published, the original outlook. And in November, we are going to publish this in Corp, and this is specific for Latin America. And we have very interesting numbers. And then we have the last study published. They talk about 215 tons of hydrogen that are necessary, and we are checking that this can be a little bit short for what really needs to happen. Here we are talking about different markets, domestic markets, industry markets, fertilizers, transport, nitrogen, and similar. And of course, here in the region, we have a great number of opportunities of sources of energy. So in the domestic consumption, not only the hydrogen, it is the most competitive option in the long term. It's happening with the biofuels. We understand that this can grow in some segments in the region, particularly looking at the exports of different projects that are finished and that can add value. And there are opportunities that are really interesting for the region, the commodities of steel and SAF, Tantar. And basically, I think it is interesting in the supply chain, the power sector, there is much to do, but it's a very interesting market so far. I totally agree with you. And if we go back a few years ago, that we were aiming for the exports of the region, and now we are changing the scope. And we have this feeling that Europe was coming to save us as a
Recording in progress.
Here we have the audio back. David, in Olade Vision, how do you see this topic of opportunities? We have seen there is a great potential in the region to be leaders in the development of this industry. I think we are going to have two big engines, the internal demand and export. And this has been mentioned before, but the first thing it is to deal with the existing demand. Without a great challenge of technology, we are going to be able to replace fuels by hydrogen. The important thing is that 80% of this it is depending on the import, but the opportunities go a little bit beyond. Chile, Peru, they are going to have the opportunity to decarbonize explosives and heavy machinery. Countries as Brazil or Mexico, they can replace coal and use steel, produce steel with hydrogen. And then hydrogen can be a seasonal transition to provide better grip to the other kinds of sustainable energy. And the combination of CO2 that has been and combined with the hydrogen of low emissions that is going to allow us to produce fuel for airplanes. And also in Uruguay, they are doing very interesting things. But also there are challenges, technological challenge, legal frameworks, institutional framework, and challenges. I think about improve the competitiveness of the hydrogen produced by the electrolysis. We need a vial port infrastructure. We need to think about exchange of natural gas pipelines, change to hydrogen supported one. Also, we can add the certification processes that need to be updated and also the incentives, the right incentives. And another sensitive point, it is water, because more than 50% of the electrolysis projects can be located in an area with hydric stress, and we need to work with the solutions because of the population complaints. And the development of this industry is not going to compromise the development of the region and the neighboring areas. So to 2040, according to the projects that have been announced, we believe that we are going to produce 10 millions of tons of hydrogen, and about 50% is going to be for exports, 5 millions of tons. And I think that some countries are going to be leading that despite of what it is in the roadmap of Latin America, most of the countries are going to have this goal of export. But there are several other countries that not only are going to export, so the region is going to be a fundamental role. And export, it is fundamental as well. So it's a good topic of conversation. The export is good driver, definitely, but there are other aspects to be considered. You, as a regional Seremi, you have a great source of energy, and then you can also use a lot of hydrogen in the mining industry. Well, I am Daphne. I am Seremi of Energy in the energy capital of the country, and we have about 10 gigas of installed capacity. and 68% it's renewable energy, and we are moving in the right direction. And this we used to be based in fossil fuel, but we have a very really important deployment of this kind of energy because of the region being so important in the mining industry, and that is just the beginning of how everything started. I see a great potential. This synergy of the mining industry and energy, they are supportive of each other. And we need to handle the strategic minerals in the future markets. And for this, the industry of green hydrogen, it's a fundamental. And in this sense, we mentioned that, for example, ammonia, that it is used for explosive and the transport as well. There is this very innovative process because I was in the Concepcion University and they were proposing some replacement of a green hydrogen and they wouldn't even generate some waste. And we have examples where we can use green hydrogen, but it's needed. We have about 27% of the energy given to this international inter-regional grid. And this was mentioned about the water topic. We are in the driest desert in the world, and we do not have a hydro crisis because they were visionaries 20 years ago. They push forward the development of desalination. So, and 80% of these use of water, it is water from the ocean. And there are a lot of other projects that are very important for mining and desalination of the water. We have the infrastructure, we have other factors that are supporting this deployment. And this industry is a value channel, and we need specific competencies in each of these steps of this chain. And I think that in the context of generating these enabling capacities, the plan of green hydrogen that was built with a perspective from the territory, this is key. We have the strategy with great numbers, quite ambitious, but we have to go down to earth with concrete measures. And this is what we have done during this government from the territories. We have involved all the relevant actors in all the important regions, Magallanes region, Biobío, Antofagasta, and together with the industry and the academia and civil society, we are able to see opportunities and challenges of this industry. So the generation of this can be an opportunity for the local people and that it can mean um, real development. I think this is very positive, thinking about the projections of the copper price. There we have a nice opportunity, and Bank of America had a projection of about $6.2, sorry, $6.2 the pound for 2027. Those are historical prices, and that help us to generate innovation and to be able to generate projects that are going to the goals of decarbonization and adding extra value. We already talked about the opportunities. Now tell me how, because that is the most difficult part. I'm going to set an example as a how. In the case of Paraguay, in Itaipu plant, very intelligent. they say our market is not, I mean, it is exporting, but not to the European Union, to Brazil. And we are going to have the hydrogen transformed into ammonia and then to urea, and we are going to put it in a truck and we are going to give it to Brazil for the agricultural industry there. That project is going to close. Well, it's one of the few projects that is going to be happening actually soon. And another important point when the CEO was asked, why don't you do bigger? And the optimal size, it is 280 megas. We are not interested in escalating. And he said, and to go from kilo to meg to giga, you need to go through megas. So makes sense.
Bueno, yo ya un poco te respondí. Para mí la integración es parte
For
de la
me,
respuesta.
the integration is part of the response. And you have given me the example. We are seeing that we have countries with a superávit of energy like Chile, but we have countries in the north like Ecuador, they have strong energy issues. How you solve that with interconnection, with regional integration?
Tenemos un mercado muy interesante. Latinoamérica es un mercado que muchos
But
no le dan
it's a
mucha
very
importancia, pero
interesting
es un mercado bastante
market
grande
because we are a
y
quite big
con consumos
market
altos en energía.
and we have a big
También
consumption of
hacia el
energy
norte,
and we
para
have
Chile
this
también
potential that is
producir
quite strong.
y además con lo que decías del cobre, pero
And
con el
for
tema
Chile to start
de
with
la
this
inteligencia
and the copper, for
artificial,
example, and the
sí
digitalization, artificial
hay
intelligence,
proyecciones que dicen que
we
vamos a
have
necesitar
projections that say that we are going to need an extra Chile
para producir el cobre necesario
to produce the
para
copper that is
cubrir toda
necessary
esta
to
demanda
cover
que va a
this
generar
full
la
demand
digitalización, esta
that is going to
robotización,
generate
la
this
revolución digital.
digitalization that it is going to
Entonces,
be
yo
needed by this digital revolution.
sí,
I see it as an
se
opportunity,
necesita muchísima infraestructura
and we
para
need a
transporte,
lot
para
of
almacenar,
infrastructure
como se decía,
for
pero
transport and storage.
desarrollar esa
But
infraestructura en áreas
developing that as
donde hay cierta
infrastructure is
pobreza
going to generate employment,
yo creo que es una
technology,
buena oportunidad.
and I would say
De
this is a
ahí,
great opportunity
nosotros,
too.
entre nosotros,
And among
garantizamos la
ourselves,
seguridad
so
energética de la
we
región.
can
Sería el primer
guarantee
paso y después exportar.
the
Porque nosotros
security of the
sabemos que
region.
como
That is the
Latinoamérica hay
first
desde
step.
México
And I'm
hasta
talking from
Patagonia los
Mexico
recursos para producir
till
electrodomésticos
Mexico,
que tenemos
till from Mexico
en
till the
México.
Patagonia. We have enormous
Wow.
resources to produce this. It's
Entonces es
like no one can
oportunidad para mí es una oportunidad de oro para la región para
beat
descarbonizar
us.
y
This is
para
a cool
aportar
opportunity for the region to
al planeta
decarbonize and to
y ayudar
support the
por más de que
country and the
Europa
planet.
no pueda producir lo que
And
nosotros tenemos la
even
capacidad
if Europe
externa para
wants
producir.
to, Europe is not
Entonces,
able to
en ese
produce
sentido,
what we want
primero,
have the opportunity to do at our level, at our speed.
Colombia
So
es
the
un
example that
fertilizante
you have
sumamente
given,
fuerte
this
en
is a
donde
very strong
en un lugar
fertilizer
donde tienes
in
no
a
Brasil
place
fertilizante
where
para
you
producción de
have
soya,
Argentina, Brazil with the
Paraguay,
soy
Bolivia
production,
también tiene una
Paraguay,
producción interesante,
Bolivia has a very interesting
más frío
production
también
as
tienes Colombia con el café y todo eso, que van a necesitar este tipo de
and you have
fertilizantes porque
Colombia also in the
además,
agro
como
industry
decía,
needs this kind of fertilizer.
el
And
tema de
as Daphne said, the topic of
es un sector
mining,
importante,
it is an
puede ser
important sector that can be
electrificable. Lo que necesitamos es electrificar,
electrified. And
porque
what
ya
we need is
empezamos a
to
producir
electrify
baterías
everything. Okay, because we
hidrógeno
started producing
electrificación.
green energy.
¿Por qué?
But what about the
Porque si
electrification?
seguimos
Because, sorry, if we
con por
continue
ejemplo, el agro utilizando
with agro
fósiles,
using
pero
fossil
si no
fuels,
electrificamos, va a crecer esa demanda.
but if we
Entonces,
electrify,
vas,
that
vas,
demand is going to
vas a
grow
producir más, pues.
many millions.
Puntos aquí. Primero,
2
lo que
points
me
here.
dijiste es una innovación de business, ¿no? Creo que eso es
What you said is a business innovation.
sin
And
innovación,
it's a point that without
no
innovation,
creo que sea algo que se vea en el corto plazo. O sea, hay que buscar
I don't think that this is something
nichos
that you can see in the
específicos
short
donde
term. We have a
el
specific
sector
niches
tiene
that
más, tiene más económica.
in order to have the footing for everything, I mean the baseline. And in the second point, hydrogen, as it was mentioned with the drives, is part of a strategy, integrated strategy of planning. It is not a specific vector. It it requires coordination, not only government actors, but also private. And I'm talking about the connection between the different segments of energy production. And what we are discussing here, it's what is the impact of the power sector, how it's related not only to the hydrogen perspective, but how this power is going to be adjusted to that process, how to add the value channel, the value chain, how to attract the industry. It's not only the hydrogen energy, that's it. It is a combination. It is a production segment that as a country we need to put together. Also, it is how you need to see hydrogen one to one. And the drive of the export, I think it is so important, as I mentioned, the different fuels. This is something that maybe is not that accelerated, but it's a strong trend. And I think that we need to be more competitive, and that is going to make the difference. And if we have a region that can do this with competitiveness, with the natural resources and access to logistics, this is something that can set us apart. I don't think that it's possible that all the countries and all of the regions that can develop their projects, we need coordination. This study that I mentioned in South America, it is the point that we have to clarify. We have to coordinate because the amount of projects we have everywhere, it's amazing. We don't know how this can end up if we have duplicated efforts. It's not only the production of hydrogen, we need to care about the supply chain, the value chain, multilateral coordination. It's also important with this process. And in the roadmap of how we can talk about a lot of things, regulation, and with the different mechanisms and the socio-environmental factor. There is a lot about this how, but the central message is that one, integrated view beyond hydrogen only. In the third round, we are going to do something more interesting. In 30 seconds, recommendations to the board of ministers, only the most powerful one, okay? David, you start. I want to focus in the how of the export. To export, you don't need us to produce it. We need to comply with international standards. For example, the European Union demands traceability in the whole chain and to be able to verify that. And this is a challenge and an opportunity for the region. The schemes of certification that they have to be solid and acknowledged by the rest of the world. And there are several actions that we can do. First of all, we have to create systems of certification and digital platforms and organisms of governance that provide support to the possible customers. This cannot advance isolated way. We need to have a share scheme. And we are sound facing members of the market. Also, we need to harmonize concepts for the handling of attributes. As we were seeing with the European Union, we have some attributes that we cannot comply completely in the region. For example, redispatch, and we need to work on that. How I'm going to work out the concept of reconversion, but there I have some visions that we have to work together. It's useless to have a big portfolio of projects if we cannot guarantee the demands of the international markets. And I would like to tell you about what it is, the project that we have jointly with other organizations here. We are doing national certification programs for Argentina, Chile, Colombia, and Panama, and we hope in 2026 to include at least 4 other countries and to work these harmonizations of concepts. And a milestone of this project is that we are developing this informatic platform that will allow the promoters of these projects to identify if they comply with the international demands. And I want to show this to everyone. Can you show it on the screen, please? This is a preliminary version. We are going to have a lot of changes, but I want to show you what is the idea. We are going to have different areas here where we are going to be able to acknowledge and to know about the requirements, if the projects qualify with the international demands, and we are going to know the perspectives of the destination market demands. If you want to know some requirements, we do not have internet. First, we need to have energy, security, and Wi-Fi as well. It's not connected. Well, we are going to be able to know the requirements of the international markets as Korea, Japan, UK, and this is going to be clearly stated what the projects need to comply. We are going to have different projects from water electrolysis and also gasification of biomass, pyrolysis, hydrogen project combined with nitrogen, hydrogen, and CO2. Of course, not everyone is going to be applicable to all the markets, but these are just examples. The ones that do not qualify, they can be simulated quickly, and you can verify if these projects qualify or not. I think it's not working.
Bueno, sigamos. Mientras que, pero yo creo que lo que está presentando David es una.
What David is presenting, it is
camino hacia el cómo, digamos.
Is a good path to the right direction. Certification mechanisms of what we are doing in IDB of related to certification, where 14 countries are already working with us. The goal is to have a certification mechanism. And we have a pre-certification that is not approved by the state. This is the great difference with this mechanism with this European scheme. So we can see I have the pre-certification of my project, and with that, I can get to other markets for funds. And this is going to work to close the funding gap. And that is what David is presenting. This is a mechanism that is working to reduce the gap of funding. In the case of Antofagasta, how? Hopefully, I would like to have the answer, but before the how, we have to understand that we are in a climate change crisis that it's not have not seen before, and energy production, it's about 27% of the greenhouse gases effect production, and this also there, it's a challenge that is urgent. If we can quantify the impact of this crisis in terms of emission, health, natural disasters, quantification, I think this will be compensated. But at global world, at the world level, the taxes to emissions is key to make hydrogen competitive. And the other thing that Ricardo mentioned regarding adding value to the project. We are in a strategic region for the bio-oceanic corridor that is going to connect Chile, Brazil, Uruguay, and Argentina. And in relation to the climate crisis, we have some basins that are collapsed, and it would be complex to use those roads. So it's a complex situation that is coming. As a government, we have committed to this because we have a committee of ministers for the bioceanic corridor. And this is really interesting, thinking about the logistic opportunities, the return eh, shipment. And I think this makes sense. The fertilizers for countries that need so. So I think this is a way of adding value, generating employment, taking advantage of the inverse logistic, and therefore also helping us all. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, it is the added value to our strategic products. When we export copper concentrated, we export valuable minerals, and if we are able to refine them with green hydrogen, we are going to be gaining a great opportunity. We do not produce waste, and also thinking about quantitative terms and economical valuation. If we export as it is now, or if we refine this with the green hydrogen, we have a great opportunity of the economic factor per industry, and I think that it can be really useful. I'm going to be as well in these 2 final minutes, 2 minutes to finish per person. This is the Council of Ministers. We have 2 minutes to give two essential points, and we want them to remember, and they can take it to their own congresses and work on that. What I think that is important is the infrastructure topic that is existing that can be reused for hydrogen and similars. And if we are going to build new infrastructure, hopefully it's shared by different sectors and prioritize that. That is one of the measures. And the other is prioritization of the strategic products for Latin America. We know that the fertilizers are imported from Russia, but do something about it. that should be priority. In Latin America, work a lot with agriculture and many other things, but let's work in decarbonizing fertilizer. Those are my two main aspects. It could be much more, but this is just the basics. Can I repeat it? No.
A ver, yo pienso que el
I
chip
think
nuestro tiene que
that
cambiar en el sentido de que
our
esto
mindset
no es
has to
un
change.
costo, no es,
This is not
es
cost,
una inversión que
it's an investment
en el largo plazo rinde,
that in the long term
que va a generar
i-
empleo, que va a
it's
generar innovación
profitable.
tecnológica, que va a generar
It's going to generate
capacidad
employment,
para enfrentar
capacity to
nosotros.
face
Entonces, en ese
other
sentido, yo
topics.
pienso que es eso.
So in
Y
that
además,
sense,
ver el mercado interno que tenemos,
I need to
potencial que tenemos entre
look
nosotros
at the
para
internal
generar
market, the power that we
capacidad
have
de valor
shared
y para
to generate better
también
value
los
chains,
recursos que tenemos.
also to
Hay
share
países
the
que
products
requieren
that we
nuestra
have.
energía,
There are some
algunos
countries in our region
Bolivia.
that require
Yo, por ejemplo, soy
energy,
de Bolivia. Bolivia ha
and
tenido
I
una
am from
riqueza de gas
Bolivia,
y
and
ahora
we
ya
had
está declinando.
a lot of
Por
gas
ejemplo, Chile
resources
es
that it's
una
running out
alternativa
right now,
para Bolivia.
and Chile it's an alternative for Bolivia to ensure
Entre
the
nosotros,
security of the
tenemos
energy
relaciones
availability in our country.
primero
We have to see the opportunities that we have here. We were talking about hydrogen to export to Europe, but let's start exporting here to our neighbors and then we go further.
Muchos ministros, ¿no? Pero,
Mm. A lot of ministers in the audience.
principal que
The main message that I would give
una mirada de la región.
it is a region
Me
perspective.
refiero que
What do I mean?
como intenta Olade en el contexto del Consejo.
As Olade is doing
de
it in the
Planificación,
context of
una
the Planning
zona
Council,
de
to
planificación.
bring this
Esto es una
regional
oportunidad muy grande
perspective of planning.
tener ese
Here we
rol
have
de
a great
regional
opportunity to see this
y
from the regional
no
perspective.
sé si la palabra competir es la mejor,
And
pero
I don't know if the best
no
word is
destruir valor
competing
entre
and
países de
not
la región
destroying the value among the countries in the
Eso
region or
sería,
to have competitors here in the region. That would be
hay muchas integrada, ¿sabes? Eso es un mensaje importante, creo que para ellos.
Perfecto. David.
Gracias. A ver, creo que a los ministros primero les diría que se ha avanzado, pero que
recording in
existen retos
progress.
todavía que tenemos que cumplir: infraestructura, tecnología,
Apply
esquemas de certificación.
with certification schemes, structure we need to advance in a coordinated way in the region. We do not have to work in silos. We need to work together with the international markets and the different concepts. We are not going to be able to export, despite of having this project that it's a renewable source. Probably it's not going to be applicable for export. We need to start strengthening the local capabilities. That it's really important to create the real incentives that work in favor of the inclusion and to have aspects, environmental, into account different aspects that really create a sustainable industry. Can it be three? I have three. Well, ministers, the recommendation would be that the topics of green hydrogen and development of energy, it's a state policy. We need a great consensus because this is the basis of our development and we need to have this thinking and this needs to be a continuous process. And one of the big values that we have is that we are thinking about that regarding this industry and also collaboration. I I don't know if in many industries we have seen this level of collaboration among countries, industries, and companies that sometimes are competitors, but they need to generate the shared infrastructure to make a project profitable. And to face climate change, collaboration is key. So we have to generate the situations of collaboration. And the last recommendation is something that it was a little bit mentioned about infrastructure and the enabling conditions of the institutions. It has to be inclusive and sustainable. The development and the success